Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Neptune Sunday. It's your boy, V Moss, here with Vogue. Hey, Vogue.
Hey Vaughn, terrible. Thanks for asking.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Been a rough month and a half or so for your host of the show here, and let's get into it. So, both of us have been dealing with loss of close loved ones. Recently, I lost my dad in May and actually lost my grandmother later in that month too. And then Bogue lost her uncle. But today we're focusing on specifically the dad and the uncle. uh, Mostly because in the month of June, obviously tomorrow, we're recording on Saturday, the 15th of June. Tomorrow is Father's Day. So relevance for Father's Day for me, and also June is Pride Month, so relevance for Vogue for her uncle. That we just want to make sure that the timing. Actually, I mean, obviously, there's no ideal time for anyone to die, obviously, but the timing of our show has felt like a good time for us to get some feelings off, express our love for our lost loved ones. That's relevant to the time of the month of June.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, I'll let you go first. Tell us about your uncle.
Oh my gosh, my uncle. Um, if you know me personally, you know that my mom has three brothers. One of my uncles died a couple of years ago unexpectedly. And I'm very close with all my uncles. But the uncle who just passed is my uncle Andre. I actually grew up with him for most of my childhood. And I'm definitely my uncle's daughter. He had so much impact on like who I am as a person. Funny enough, all of my uncles again had like impact on like my music taste. We do a lot of music sharing and talking about music, and I would say that like as I was thinking about it, my uncle Andre is the person who is responsible for me being really into like pop music. So all the leans you see me take on these episodes, it's because of my uncle Andre. You can blame him. Um, and he was just such a light of a person, like three uncles all very different, but my uncle Andre in particular, he's a gay black man, grew up in a very Christian family in West Virginia, so like really not the ideal place you want to be with that as your identity, but my mom encouraged him to move up to DC. He began to live life on his own terms and really like I don't know if he ever got a full chance to step into his identity in a way that he felt proud of it, but I know that I was always proud of him and I always felt good representing him. And, that influenced my music taste, that influenced my spirituality. Like everything about me that is kind of prominent is you kind of trace back to my Uncle Andre. So yeah, it's been a hard month, but I honestly can say I'm like more grateful than anything. I can see all the influence when I look back.
That's dope. So, my dad, John, passed at the beginning of May. My parents got divorced when I was 5. And just a testament to my dad. I think of my dad's legacy for me as throughout the things that he's been through, some his fault, some not his fault, he never gave up. And because he never gave up, we never gave up on him. And so I say that as it relates to my mom specifically, like we put both of his wives in the obituary because like both of his ex-wives were still very active in his life and they gave him children who they shared. So obviously the love there and the relationships were still there. And so John was people loved John. John you know, for me, even though we didn't necessarily spend a lot of time together in the household, he still was around. Like I'm not, by no means was he not part of my life. He was part of my life in every moment that I needed him to be there, which was great. And really I appreciate that. You know, in terms of his influence, he definitely influenced more of the style than the music. Like I would naturally like I always talk about my mom's music influence because I would be in the car with her all the time listening to Luther Vandross and stuff. But my dad is the one who had me wearing polo every day for probably 5 years when in my formative adult year, not adult, in my adolescent years from high school to college, and kind of really made it a point, even though he wasn't in the household every day, to really make sure that I was learning those lessons and being a man and style, like how to wear suits and ties and that kind of stuff. So that was really cool. I really appreciate that. That's one thing that a lot of people always said that, and I got to talk to a lot of people who I knew a lot of his friends, I knew them, but not necessarily well, but just to hear people that grew up with him. He was very active in his high school class reunion activities. So like those people would come up to me and talk about some of those same things about him always being the life of the party and him always being stylish, which was cool to hear. I think that's probably one of the best things about these moments is having people who know your loved ones in a different light
Yeah.
or have known them longer to be able to share stuff with you. That kind of gives you more perspective and gives you more appreciation. It helps because you get more appreciation and more perspective of who they are, but it also hurts because it's like now you don't even get to even explore those parts about them. So that's kind of the gift and curse of that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but overall, like that's my guy. We miss him. Super appreciative the fact that, even though my parents haven't been together since I was 5, like still have a relationship with him and still, as you know, have a relationship with his whole side of the family. Like the Mosses, there's 9 of them, including my dad. And so, a lot of times in family situations like that, when that happens, like there's a clear divide and that did not happen. So I'm super appreciative of that. A lot of that has to do with him. A lot has to do with my mom. A lot has to do with just the Mosses in general. But super appreciative of just happy to be a Moss and happy to know that he was proud of me.
Yeah. Your relationship with that side of the family is why we know each other.
For
Um,
sure.
this show would not exist without your dad, putting it that way.
Uh,
Um, and it sounds like we have similar experiences. Like it's really beautiful to hear like people all say the same thing about the person that you love.
yes.
Even if some of it is like a little new to you, like my sister, I have 2 sisters for people who don't know, but my middle sister, she has been tracking all the Facebook comments and they all say the exact same thing. It was like, oh, he was such a light, he was such a kind person, he was so like sweet and gentle. And it sounds like for your dad, it was like, oh, he was like life of the party, kept things going. It's like it's nice to see that reflected back. Like you can have experience with somebody and like they're not perfect people.
Right.
At the end of the day, like to see the impact they left behind, like it's really beautiful.
I mean, I think, and I'm sure you've been dealing with this too. I know you guys had the balloon release last night, and you guys got memorial service coming up at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it has been, especially to be involved with the planning for 2 funerals back to back, I think has helped like escalate that whole process of getting to know people after like they're gone. Like writing the obituary for my dad, I was like, oh my God, bro. Like, what am I gonna say here and who needs to be included in this? And so I think that that's really just like showing that we are actually grown adults, no matter what. If this ain't adulting, bro,
Yo,
this is
I was gonna say I've written 2 obituaries. I've written obituaries for both of my uncles, and I was like, I never in my life, you never even think about the fact that you have to do that.
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And I think that one thing that I got tasked with for both funerals was putting together the photos for the video slideshow thing, which was like it was therapeutic in its own way, right? Like I got to go. My mom has a box. It's not a big box, but it's a box that has maybe probably 400 photos,
Oh wow.
years from probably ranging from the 80s, and then most of them are from like the early 2000s where we had digital cameras or we had the disposable cameras, and so they're just in a box. So I'm going through these things, I'm looking for photos, and I'm like literally reliving my life,
Yeah.
right? And finding moments where both my grandmother and my dad were sprinkled in, and like, oh yeah, here's a picture where it's me and my grandparents and my dad right before I left to go to Spain in high school. Oh, here's a picture of when they made me do the botillion and we had to wear these white tuxedos, and it's a picture of me and my godbrother, and like so it's just like all that was crazy. But then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm seeing some like I got a whole my mom has these CDs I made for her, like but just like dumping photos from the digital camera,
Yeah.
looking at photos of my friends from high school after we graduated, or like just random stuff. So I thought that was kind of that helped. And I think those were definitely the moments that also I feel like triggered me the most in a positive way. Like you just being sad. Like there's a picture
Yeah.
that I found of my dad holding me when I was a kid that I probably will post on Instagram tomorrow and make everyone cry. But it literally like that probably was the one that got me, just because it's like you look in the picture and you get to see there's a guy who is like he's holding his third kid. It's his third shot at being a dad.
Yeah.
Hopefully gonna like figure out anything that he did, any mistakes he made before. They've got decades ahead of them. And
Yeah.
that probably was the one thing that really got me.
It's about to get me.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think the biggest thing, and we talked about this a little bit before we started, is just like everyone's got to deal with it in their own way. And I think it also helps us as in our adult age realize that the time is coming for everyone that we love, including ourselves.
That's a fun realization.
So, like, yeah.
Yeah. Keep on trucking. What's interesting, I think for me, I'm just like skate right over that. I think what's interesting for me is like my uncle has such an impact on my music taste. Like I have very vivid memories of like I said, he lived with us for the majority of my younger years. Like he lived on his own sometimes, but he was a artist, like literally a charcoal and pastel artist,
Right.
really, really talented. But he wasn't working as an artist. He wasn't like in galleries and stuff like that. His work was out there, but sometimes that meant he lived with, me, my mom, and my grandmother. So I got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with him, and a lot of that included just like us singing late night to music. And I think that like what I thought would help me, which is the music, has been really hard. I am working on a playlist to give to everyone after the memorial, and I have not been able to listen to it until yesterday.
Mhm.
It just like it brings back all of those memories. It puts you right back in those spaces and those moments with them. And like that, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about music, feel so strongly about like artists we love, just like they hold so much of our history in them. So I'm still working through that one. The pictures are easier.
Yeah.
Um, because like you can see it, but like to hear it, like kind of like physically takes you back.
Yep. So let's transition to that. Like, let's go deeper into that conversation. I mean, we promised each other that we wouldn't let this be a super sad, like only just us grieving. It would also be like an actual music conversation because that's what this podcast is. And so it's a perfect transition for that. Like, I actually have a playlist as well, but I made it maybe because my brother passed away in 2013 tragically. And so I think I made this playlist I have maybe like maybe like 2018. So that's 5 years after he passed. I think I made it like either on his probably on his birthday. Like every time around his birthday in January is when I really think about him a lot. And I'll talk about, I know you have some specific things to talk about music, but I'll talk about mine first since I'm talking about this playlist. Because the playlist, and I've added to it over the years, but the playlist takes you through so many emotions that you experience during the grieving process because you're sad and you're mad and you're, hopeful and thankful, but you're also like really devastated and you miss your people, right? Like,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
it's got like the first song on it is a song called Real Soon with it's Snoop, Daz Corrupt, and Nate Dogg. But then the next song is Dreams and Nightmares. Like, because like specifically Dreams and Nightmares was really starting to pop off when he passed. And so like I think I just heard it for the first time maybe that the week of his funeral, and it was just like it stuck with me for different reasons than it sticks with most people because it goes up in the club. Like
Yeah.
it's up in the club for me too, but like when I first discovered Dreams and Nightmares, it was because I was sad that my brother died and I was mad that he died in the same song. So
Yeah.
it made sense. Another thing I wanted to talk about the playlist specifically is, and it's literally hit me while I was driving either to or from Hampton and Richmond in between during this whole process after my dad passed and listening to this playlist. And so we have to be careful because I'm missing you,
Oh.
Sean Combs and
Oh.
Faith Evans tribute. That song was on, and it made me realize like how that song in particular, but also Faith's presence in this process, right? Because we watched Faith deal with grief in a very, very, very intense public way. And
Mm-hmm.
also we were kids, right? But it made sense to me in that moment why that song in particular and Faith's part of that song resonates with me because we know her. Like we know that that's real authentic, like pain that she's singing in that song. But then as I figured out, like as I continue to have that thought, I have her on two other songs on the playlist. She's on I Miss You with DMX, and then she's on a song called Someday that's Scarface that's produced by the Neptunes. So I'm just like, of course, like it's not lost on me that we watched her deal with this public grief. Like, so that authenticity that we have in those songs that she gives us and those emotions that she gives us
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So shout out to Faith.
Shout out. Wow. Really underrated. Don't get me started about Faith. Underrated R&B presence. I couldn't agree more. It's actually funny. So my playlist is more like a celebration of the music that my uncle loves. So unfortunately, there's no Neptune's presence. He was a really big, like, there are a lot of people in his life that if you talk to him about music, he'll be like, oh, Andre turned me on to Madonna. He was a huge Madonna fan, but he kept up over the years. So, like, we would talk about Ariana Grande, we would talk about Britney Spears, like, and he also had love for like really classic people like Taylor Dane, Basha, anybody you can think of like classic 80s pop, he was into them. But my ex-boyfriend from high school actually texted me about he gave me him and his wife's condolences, and he was like, never forget no one ever really dies. And I thought that was so amazing that number one, that is the statement that's like embedded in our minds.
Mhm.
People in our age group, it's like that is something that we carry with us into adulthood, but also like that was basically how my uncle lived his life. Like he had a very great awareness of like the spiritual realm and life beyond just like our human experience with each other here. And I thought that was really beautiful that number one, my friend shared with that with me, but also that like it just like immediately reminded me of my uncle. And for that reason, I would say that like one of the songs that helped me kind of like process is Run to the Sun, because it's
Mhm.
about like Pharrell's loss and how he dealt with it and dreaming of a life where he could like still be with this person. Cause like I would like to hope that, we'll all be reunited one day. Let's not get too religious.
Right.
But it's a really beautiful sentiment when you're going through something that like, cause like it's heartbreaking. It's like you use the word devastating, and I was like, I want to like capital letters that word because like it does feel devastating, but like there's so many emotions
Right.
encapsulated in this experience. And another song that really, NERD song that helps me for a different reason is Sooner or Later.
Mm.
Because, like, you go through these really painful things and it's devastating, but it always reminds me of like the ability to build yourself back up. I've had my moments over the past couple weeks where, like, literally, Vaughn's cousin came to my house and I just slept. I just needed somebody in the room while I slept. But like, I also had moments where I'm planning the things, I'm making phone calls, doing all that. It's like the duality of like we said, being an adult.
Right. Right. I mean, it's crazy to try to find those the process of like having the funeral, right? Like to have to plan that when all you want to do is sleep, but you have to make those phone calls and you have to call the printer about the programs and meet with the pastor about stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
so yeah, but so back to the music. For me, I wanted to mention that I do have two other Neptune songs. So I talked about Scarface Someday on there with Faith. I have Allure on there just because the vibes of Allure are very, very introspective,
Yeah.
very just you're in your thoughts. Jay-Z's in his thoughts about life. And so I think that that definitely fits the vibe of the grieving process for me. And then we had this moment. So literally just and I think this is all I'm gonna say about this just to because I don't want to talk too much about it. But just so listeners know how crazy and the reason why we're doing this episode is just like there's been so much going on. Like both of these people are super important to us, on top of the fact that I didn't just lose my dad, I also lost my grandmother. So literally my grandmother passed the morning of my dad's funeral. 2 weeks later, we had the funeral for my grandmother, and I hopped on a flight to Atlanta to go to a conference for work. And so on my way back from Atlanta is where I got the idea for us to have this conversation because I knew that we were both going through this process. And obviously, we are partners. Like in this, we are connected and we are like actual friends. So,
Yeah.
like,
I was like, don't use the word partners.
so like we are actual friends. Like this is a thing that is good and helpful for us. And so that's where the idea for this episode came. And so literally while I'm texting Vogue about the idea, Pink and White comes on my shuffle, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm sitting in between these two people, and I'm just like, I have my hat pulled down, and I have my big ass Bose noise canceling on, like texting Vogue, like, oh my gosh, I'm holding back tears. I'm listening to Pink and White because a lot of people don't realize like Pink and White is about someone who died. Like
Yep.
it's a beautiful song, and we all love it for it being one of Frank Ocean's best. We love it. Obviously, we love it for the Pharrell connection. Obviously, Beyonce's background vocals are chef's kiss, sprinkling magic on the bottom.
Some of
Like
her best.
so that's another song that's really important to me. That just kind of is a song that you can listen to anytime and kind of just mellow out.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like very early on I understood what that song was about. Like, yeah, that song is actually really meaningful to me. But in my musical journey of this, I'm actually gonna take a little turn to like the more positive because I realized as I was putting together this playlist, there actually is a Madonna song. There are a few Madonna songs produced by the Neptunes, which I forget about all the time. I think Hard Candy,
Mm-hmm.
like people don't remember that album, but that was when Madonna in her, think what you want about Madonna. She's very wise about who she worked with, the trend she tapped into. She started working with the Neptunes. And there's this song on there called The Beat Goes On with Kanye. And I was like, wow, that's perfect. This is gonna sound so corny, but like the beat goes on. We're like, we keep
Yes.
living, we keep these people's memories alive. We continue that whatever journey they started. And like my uncle was an artist, but I am a graphic designer. And I feel like in a lot of ways, like what I've been able to do, what I've been blessed to do with in my career are things that like he only got a taste of, but I'm able to like live them in a bigger way. And I'm hopefully one day I'll have that impact on somebody else in my family or somebody else, one of my friends' kids. It was a song that reminded me not only of like the person my uncle loved, but like his legacy to me. Another song that is really meaningful to me in this has been Love Bomb, just
Mm.
because of my uncle's personality, and how like literally if you met this man, you just be like, you're the sweetest person I've ever met. He was so kind. And don't get me wrong. Everyone has their dark sides, but like everyone's experience with him is just so positive. Like he is always encouraging people, always like reassuring them of like God's love and source loves you. And I just felt like even though Love Bomb is a song that kind of like is talking about like war and the realities of the world, but like it is a testament to the power of love. I've said some of the corniest things I've ever said on this podcast during this episode.
That's what happens though. Like
Yeah.
your reflection. I don't know if you saw the video from my grandmother's funeral. Like that whole God's timing thing was like, I don't know where I pulled that out of, but it hit me one day, and it was just like, this is what I got to say,
Yeah.
and it made sense. So yeah, ultimately, like the music definitely has been helpful for both of us to help keep things in perspective, to process things and whatever wave of whatever emotion that comes with the process and the music. That's the great thing that we love about music. It taps into every emotion. So having this music and being big music people and knowing that there are a bunch of different songs out there, some of them being from the Neptunes that can help us with this has been definitely great. So for all you listeners out there, if you got anything going on, hopefully this helped you. Maybe something that you're going through recently, or maybe something past, like this, some songs you can listen to. Promise I will get back to the regularly scheduled program. A lot, because there's a lot to talk about. Like Despicable Me song dropped yesterday. So before we go, got to
Yeah.
talk about one, the Lego movie looks like it's going to be amazing.
Of course it is.
Two, they've been shooting his other musical movie in Richmond.
I did not know that.
And so Anderson Paak is apparently in it, was in Richmond a couple weeks ago, just walking around. He went to a music festival that some people that I know had in Richmond. I don't know the people, but Chance Fisher, Chauncey,
Yeah.
little brother, he was at the festival and just like hanging out in the spot like it was nothing.
That's so dope.
So, as I mentioned, second part of that, when I left, literally, like this is just crazy. And again, it's just like we're talking about stuff that is relevant. Like there's a lot going on, and then just like the synergies pop up, whatever. My grandma's funeral's on Monday. It's over. I gotta go to Atlanta. I'm in the airport in Richmond. And so this is like Monday at like 4:30,
Yeah.
5:30 in the afternoon. And I'm going into the little, all the airports got those stands where they're trying to sell you a million things, snacks and books, magazines, whatever. Going to just get a water and a kind bar, and that's it. And I see this woman come into this little shop, and she's got on like sunglasses, scarf. It's like a Louis scarf or something like that, hair tied up in a Louis scarf. And I'm like, I know that person. I, and she literally, I think she walked up to a magazine and took a picture of it or something. I don't know. So then I walk out and I kind of catch a glimpse of her when she walks past me. And I'm like, yo, that's Quinta Brunson.
Stop it.
So then she went back and sat in the restaurant that was a couple like feet away. And so I called Kia and I was like, Kia, I'm pretty sure this is Quinta Brunson here, but I don't want to be like, I don't want to be that guy. That's just not my style. Like I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a pride thing or if I just, if I just genuinely like respect people like
Yeah.
I want to be bothered. So she's sitting in the restaurant. So I like literally walked like I was just stalling, walking in a circle, but I was on the phone. So it looked like I was like talking to Kia and not like scoping out to make sure it was her. So then after like maybe the third or fourth look, I knew it was her. And I'm pretty sure it was her husband who was with her. I don't know. I don't know. So there was a dude with her at
Yeah.
and they weren't like hiding, like they were sitting at the table closest to the entrance. So like I mean, she was right there. So literally, I said, Kia, I'm going to say something, but I'm not going to get a picture. I don't want to be,
You don't want to be that guy.
I want to be that guy. So I literally walked past and took like two steps into the restaurant and I pulled my mask down. I said, hey, because like as soon as I walked up closer, the guy put his arm out and I was like, hey, I just want to say, me and my wife love the show. I used to live in Philly. I used to work at Temple. We are really like big fans of it and think it's amazing. Hope you had a great time. I'm actually from Richmond. Hope you're saying Richmond was great. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet. Great to meet you. Thank you for stopping. And then I walked away.
That's amazing. Great story.
2 days later, it announced that she's in the movie.
Wow, that makes sense.
So
Incredible.
what a time. It's just what a time. What a time.
Little nuggets of goodness.
Hey, just we'll take whatever we can get. Whatever we can get. All right, Bo. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hopefully, it's under better terms next time.
We're planning, my birthday's in a month. So I think we're planning DC the weekend and then go on a trip after that. So I'll let you know when we're up there.
Okay, perfect.
All right, folks. Hope everyone got something out of this or just appreciate you just listening to us talk it through. Remember that no one ever really dies. We will catch you next Neptune Sunday. Peace and love.
Love and light.